Ladies, we're ready.
Good morning.
Congratulations, when are you due? Good day. Welcome to another episode of Good Day. My name is Daniel Bennett. It's great to have you join us. And sorry, each time we film one of these episodes, I see the intro again. And it just reminds me, I didn't actually realize I was balding until I started being in some of these videos. So I watched these videos and I was like, wait, what? And my wife's like, oh yeah. And I was like, I had no idea. That's when you look in the mirror, you don't really know. Anyway, it is great to see you guys. This is going to be an episode of me sharing some things with you all. And what I want to talk with you today about is, it's kind of a long title. Times that I thought I was being spiritual, but God corrected me and told me I was actually just being lazy. Okay, so that's a bit of a long title. We'll probably shorten it. But first, I want to give you, I just got back. I don't know when this is going to air. I just got back from a family vacation. And so before we get to that, I want to talk about some tips to enjoy a family vacation. I've actually thought about this for years, that it'd be something interesting or fun to talk about. And, you know, being on a vacation got me thinking about it, started remembering other vacations I've been on as an adult, as a child. And you see other people on vacation, right? When you go on a vacation, you see other families and how they're handling stuff and the whole deal. And so I just have a few tips on how to enjoy a family vacation. And there's probably more. So if I don't hit some of your main tips, maybe you could leave in the comments. You could let me know some of your recommendations to enjoy a family vacation. Because the funny thing with a vacation is that it can go one of two ways, right? You can have an amazing time, or it can backfire and you have a terrible time. And you're like, why did we even do that? That was terrible. Everyone's angry at each other, the whole deal. And so I just had a great time on a vacation. And so here's some of my tips. Tip number one is don't over-plan, okay? Now, some of you are probably freaking out because you're the planner, and others of you might not be planners at all. I'm a fan of planning. I'm just saying don't over-plan. Or at the very least, if you like to plan everything down to the minute for however many days your vacation is, then at least accept the fact that it's not all going to happen. Embrace it. You'll enjoy your vacation more if you accept, like, my plan will not happen exactly and I'm okay with that. You need to come to terms with that in advance, or just bake into the plan that there's a lot of unexpected things that will come up. See, if you're too focused on a plan, it can be very stressful. Whenever things don't go the way that you were hoping they went, or unexpected things happen, you'll be like, oh no, our plan, right? And so no, the whole point's to have fun. The whole point's to enjoy time together as a family. So don't make it about the plan, right? It's like the Sabbath, right? Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man. Some people go on vacation and they're like, the whole point of this vacation is to follow the plan. It's like, no, the plan was there just to help you have fun. And some of the best moments are unexpected ones, right? You can't plan what's going to be the most fun or the most memorable moment and things like that, right? My wife and I, years ago, we went to Puerto Rico. It's kind of like a second delayed honeymoon or something. And so we went to Puerto Rico, and it was great, but it rained a lot while we were there. And one time we had walked a few blocks away from the hotel to go eat, and on the way back, it was a monsoon, like the craziest rain you could barely even see. And we got drenched. We had to run. We had no idea what was going on. It was very intense. And that ended up being one of the funniest memories of the trip there. So even though it didn't go wrong and we couldn't plan it, we still look back and we're like, remember that time that we got stuck in that rainstorm because we had no idea it was about to rain. And so sometimes you can't plan the best parts. You know, if you do something with a family, you don't know what the kids are going to enjoy, what they're not going to enjoy, and all that. And so don't be too married to the plan. Allow the unexpected things to happen and just go with it. So, yeah, sometimes you'll be like, the kids will love this. And if they don't, well, they didn't love it. But then what if they love something that you didn't expect? And so, just enjoy it. So tip number two is, and all these things, these are highly controversial, right? So these are my opinion. Maybe there's more nuance. I haven't given this as much thought as you might think. Tip number two is don't max out your budget just to get there. So I see this happen sometimes with vacations. I try to get the most bang for my buck. I'm a very frugal person. And so when I go for a vacation, I'm like, what's the nicest place I can get to? And then what happens is you spend all your budget getting there, and then you have no money to enjoy life while you're there. So I've learned over the years not to do that, right? If you spend your whole budget just to get there, now you're going to be, eating crackers in your hotel room the whole trip because you forgot to budget for food or for other things. And so don't spend all your money just to get there. Like, plan on unexpected expenses, right? It's one of those things, like if you go on a vacation to bless your family And the whole time you're there, you just complain about how expensive the food is. Or you say, hey, nobody get this or nobody get that, and you're in cheapskate mode. You're not going to have fun. So pick something where like you leave enough room in the budget to cover those kinds of things, right? It's not just things being more expensive than you expect, but something might go wrong. You might forget things. In my family vacation that we just went on, we were taking the kids to a park, and it's this long bus ride and all this stuff. And when we got there, we realized we forgot one of my kids' shoes. And so we had to either buy these incredibly expensive Crocs that, they didn't sell normal shoes, but it's like, do we go all the way back and waste 2 hours, or do we just buy the extra shoes, right? So there's unexpected expenses. And so I just planned for that, right? I'd say plan on spending 75% of your budget and leave 25% for just enjoying yourself, buying souvenirs, unexpected expenses, right? Just accept the fact that the food is going to cost too much, things like that. And so I recommend don't spend all your money, don't max out your budget just to get there. Leave money to actually do the stuff while you're there, to rent out a jet ski, whatever you're doing, right? You'll enjoy it more if you're not complaining the whole time about the finances. Just, you baked it in advance. You bit the bullet, just go for it, have a good time. If you complain about how much things cost the whole time, then you won't have a good time, and everyone else isn't going to have a good time either. So again, just pick something that's within your budget. There's many different types of vacations. Tip number 3 is, especially with kids, inconvenient things will happen, so just roll with it. Similar to tip number 1. But on my vacation, we just had, sometimes we'd have to be walking to this bus. And so before we walk to the bus, long walks, we ask the kids, all right, do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to go to the bathroom? No, we don't. Do you need to go? No, we don't. Okay, so we walk all the way there. You wait in line forever. When it's finally your time to get to the line, one of my kids said, I'm about to poop my pants. And so you're like, oh my goodness. And so it's up to me, right? My wife's pregnant. So I grab him, run with him, however far, 2 minutes of sprinting to the bathroom. And then we get there and he says, oh, I can't go. And so, right, so the bus comes and goes, right? Then you get all the way back. You could get annoyed by that kind of stuff, or you could think it's hilarious, right? It's going to happen. Just roll with it. Especially if you have little kids, you just can't predict certain things. Some things are going to go wrong. And so instead of getting frustrated, just roll with it. Just enjoy it. Some of those moments that were so incredibly, that happened more than once too, where you wait forever, and when it's finally your turn, you have to leave the line because something came up, and so you wasted all that time standing in line for a ride or something. Just laugh with it, laugh about it, because just let those be fun memories instead of memories of you getting annoyed at everybody. And so those are some of my quick tips. Now we'll talk about the main topic of the day, but first we'll show you this interstitial real quick.
Life comes with all kinds of storms. But when your boat is sinking, you might want to step out and learn how to be a water walker. Log on to gooddayGTN.com to get your free copy today.
Welcome back. And as I mentioned, what I want to talk with you about today is times that I thought I was being spiritual, but I was actually being lazy by accident. So maybe we can shorten that to accidental laziness or spiritualized laziness or whatever. Now, first of all, I'm going to be oversimplifying some things. My goal is to spark some thoughts in you that might be helpful. I'm not trying to give a full autobiography, so there's more nuance and context that I might gloss over, things like that. And so don't read too into what I'm sharing here, because there's more, I could talk about these things in different contexts and give more depth. But I'm just going to spark a few thoughts that you may have never thought of, maybe you have thought of, but hopefully it's helpful to you. So again, there's times in my life when I thought I was on the right track, and in some ways I was, but God showed me I had a blind spot and that I was missing out because of some thought processes that I had, some things that were holding me back, and I didn't realize it. And so there's been many areas where God showed me that what I thought I wanted wasn't, I had good intentions, but I didn't realize that part of my motivation was misguided. And so he gave me some more wisdom and revelation that set me free and helped me become much more effective in life. And so the first one, I think I have 6. Number 1 is wanting to die young. I know that sounds weird, but I wanted to live such a crazy, extreme life for Jesus. I wanted to go to the most dangerous places on earth. I wanted to get martyred young. I just wanted to live this crazy, extreme, dangerous, intense life where there's no way that it'll just last for too long. It's going to end young, because, I wanted to be like some of the heroes of the faith who lived like that, right? John the Baptist, right? He was in his early 30s. Stephen, we don't know how young he was, but he was young. James, we don't know his age, but he was the first, apostle to be martyred. And so I was like, I want to be like one of them, who they live this amazing, powerful life, and they don't have to stick around for long. And some people are called to that, but I think it's very, very few. God showed me that I was actually looking for a loophole, saying I want to be extreme, but I'm too scared of trying to do that for a long time. Where I realized I thought it was too much work and too difficult to try and live a long, successful, effective life where I bless a lot of people for many years. And so I was looking for a cop-out, really. I was like, I just want out of here because it sounds like really hard work. So I want to do extremely hard work, but then be out of there. There's different mindsets too. It's kind of like I used to do missions, long-term, short-term. I've done different types of missions. And I noticed that with like mission teams that showed up for 1 week, they would be so intense. They'd want to work for 16 hours a day and not sleep and not rest and not have fun and not relax and anything. Just work, because they knew that in a week they were going back home. And so I realized that's kind of how I was seeing my life. I want to work this crazy lifestyle that's not sustainable. God said, if you truly care, you'll go about it, you'll do it a different way and say, how can you live at a pace where you can maintain it the rest of your life long term? Not just saying, oh, I'm out of here, so I can work crazy because I know I'm not going to be here for long. It's a different mindset, right? Living a long life is more difficult. It takes more work. It requires more patience. It requires more diligence. It requires the mindset that I'm not going to just give up when there's a big hurdle and say, I'm out of here. I'm going to overcome hurdles consistently, long term. And so it's a completely different mindset than just I'm going to show up and leave versus I'm going to stay here long term and I'm going to focus, I'm going to care, right? I'm not just going to do something exciting, but I'm actually going to care about the results long term. And so I was very focused on just doing cool things for God. And God switched my heart to say, don't worry about how cool it is. Focus on the fruit. Are you being effective for the kingdom long term? And that requires long-term commitment many times, right? One of the scriptures that changed my heart on this was 1 Corinthians 4, verse 15. 1 Corinthians 4:15 says, for though you might have 10,000 instructors in Christ, yet you do not have many fathers. For in Christ Jesus I have begotten you through the gospel. See, there's a difference between just having an instructor and a father or a mother. And that kind of set me on a different path of realizing, the world needs fathers of the faith to stick around. The world needs grandfathers of the faith to stick around. Mothers, grandmothers of the faith to stick around. If we all are hoping to get out of here quick, then who's sticking around for future generations? I think we should all strive. And again, there's very few exceptions where someone's called to be martyred or something like that very early on. We should all want to say, I want to live here as long as I can be effective to help future generations, where I don't just want to be an instructor to other people. I want to be a spiritual father to people, which means I care about them. I'm not just teaching them, but I actually care about how things are working out for them. Not even just for spiritual kids, but for your real kids too. Right, Paul said in Philippians 1:24, nevertheless to remain, he's saying, should I go or should I stay? Should I die or should I stick around? Nevertheless to remain in the flesh is more needful for you. Right? And so he's talking about the same thing. It's better for others if we live a long life. Now again, some people are called to, go out early because of persecution, things like that. But our desire should be, I want to stick around because it's better for others. It's not just about what's easiest for me. Again, like I said, I thought I was being spiritual. I was actually being lazy, because living a long life in this world and being effective and fruitful and blessing other people for decades, it takes more work than just doing something cool for a few years and being out of here. So that's number one. Number two is that I wanted to be a lone wolf in ministry. I wanted to be a total loner. I was like, you know what? I just want to live for God. I don't want other people to hold me back. They'll slow me down. I just want to do my own thing. And I thought I was being very spiritual, and God showed me that I was wrong. It's easier to do things alone, but it's not more effective to do things alone. Right? Proverbs 14, verse 4 says, where no oxen are, the trough is clean, but much increase comes by the strength of an ox. Right? It's easier to do things without oxen. Things don't get as messy, but you don't get as much done. He's saying, yeah, it's clean. If you do things alone, it's easier, but is it better? You know, and that's really the main shift that God did in my heart, is don't focus on what's easy, focus on what's better. What bears more fruit that lasts a long time? That'll be a common theme in all of these. So I realized I wanted to do everything alone, but God said, you're actually just afraid of the hard work, because working with other people takes more work, takes more effort, right? Working for somebody else is more difficult than just doing your own thing. Having other people, that you're leading takes more work than just doing your own thing. Having coworkers, being part of a team takes more work. It's more challenging because you have different opinions, different perspectives. You have people who let you down, or people make mistakes, all kinds of stuff like that. And so, yes, it's more difficult, but you get more done. And God said, don't be lazy, do the better one. Do the one that has better fruit, even if it takes more work, might be a bit messier, there might be more mistakes, whatever else. You know, if you feel called to do things alone, some people are, but I'd encourage you, make sure that it's not just because of your ego, that, no, I have to be in charge and no one's going to tell me what to do, and things like that. Make sure it's not because of your ego, and make sure that it's not because you're just too lazy to work with others. If it's truly a call, then it won't be motivated by just pride, and it won't be motivated by laziness. And so, again, some are called to do things on their own, but I think many of us are called to do things in a group. It's more work, it's more difficult, but the fruit is much better, and it's worth it. So number three, the thing that I thought I was being spiritual, but God showed me I was being lazy, was not wanting to have a family. Now, this is when I was single. It wasn't like I had my family and I wanted to get rid of them or something like that. These are all things probably like 20 years old. So it's for some context there. These are things I learned along the way. So for much of my life growing up in early adulthood, I really wanted to stay single. And I thought I was being very spiritual, right? I want to be like Paul. I just want to travel and do missions. Of course, this all tied together, right? I wanted to go do dangerous things, and it's easier to do dangerous things if you don't have a family and stuff like that. But I realized that for me, again, some people are called to be single. I think most aren't, but some are. Okay, so don't, I'm not telling you that you're not if you are. But what I found for me was that part of my motivation for wanting to be single was that it required less faith. Right? See, I figured if I go out there and try to live this extreme life and I fail, if I'm single, oh well, right? What's the worst that can happen? I die. But if I have a family, the stakes are much higher. And I realized I was actually being motivated by fear, that I didn't have enough faith to follow God with all my heart with a family. And so I thought I was being spiritual, and God's like, actually, you're being motivated by fear, is that you're afraid to follow me with all your heart with a family. Because, right, if my own life is on the line, that's one thing. But if I'm responsible for a family, that's a whole other thing. So God said, how about you just grow to where you trust me with your family, instead of saying, I can't do that. I'm going to just stay single because I'm afraid of trusting God with a family. And so I thought I was being spiritual, and God corrected me and said, your motivation isn't what you think it is. Again, this is a common theme. Yours may be different than mine, but I'd say talk with God sometimes about, what's my actual motivation for why I'm so convinced of this calling, or what I'm pursuing, things like that. Many times we might be fine, but sometimes we might realize that there's certain little lies that crept in and are adjusting our motivation in ways that we didn't realize it. And so it takes more work to have a family, right? Even Paul said this in 1 Corinthians, right? If you're married, it's going to take more work. Having kids takes more work, but it's so worth it. Again, this major shift was, don't choose what's easier, choose what leads to the best fruit. And I found that for my calling is that having children, raising my kids, having kids is the best thing I'll ever do for this world. It's the best thing I'll ever do for eternity, right? For all eternity, these kids that wouldn't have existed otherwise exist, and now are going to have these amazing lives, and their kids, and anybody they bring to the kingdom, things like that. So, yeah, it's more work, but it's better. And it's this mindset shift of God said, don't choose the easy route. Choose the one that has the best fruit, even if it's more challenging. Have enough faith to do the harder thing, not just the easier thing. So number 4, let's see, is giving everything away. Again, again, like I said, this isn't an autobiography. There's more context in all this, but I've always been very extreme. I've always had good intentions. God just showed me that sometimes I had a lot of zeal without wisdom. So I'm sharing a very simplified version of where I made some mistakes, where I had really good intentions, lots of passion, but I didn't realize some of the blind spots that I had until later. But one of the things was I wanted to give everything away. I have given pretty much everything I owned away to people before. And I used to empty my bank account. I've talked about giving in other messages. But I thought that was being spiritual. Look how much I trust you, God. I'm giving everything away. I realized, though, that I was partly being motivated by laziness. And what do I mean by that? Right? Now, first of all, unless God clearly tells you to give everything away, don't do it. Study the Bible. Very, very few people are ever called to give everything away. And when they are, it's for very specific people, for very specific reasons, okay? You don't see that as a standard. Some people feel this guilt or condemnation and they do things for the wrong reasons. Don't do that. But for me, it was also that it was a cop-out, right? If I give everything away, then it's not my problem, right? I don't have to be a good steward of it. See, being a good steward of what I have, it takes a lot more work than just giving it to somebody else. And so there's a difference, right? Being a good steward it takes faith to give everything away. But to be a good steward, it takes faith and wisdom and hard work and, insight and overcoming obstacles and asking God for discernment and, all kinds of stuff, right? In Matthew 25, I won't go to the actual scriptures, to actual verses, but in the parable of the talents, right? When one got a lot and one got medium and one got just one talent, right? The servant with one talent buried it. And the master said, "You wicked and lazy servant," wicked and lazy, because he buried it. But then he said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, "The least you could have done was give it to somebody else." See, the servants who got praised weren't the ones who gave it away. They're the ones who used it. They were good stewards. The king gave me this much. I'm going to use it and multiply it. The master said, the least you could have done was give it to someone else to do something productive with it. So again, I'm not saying we never give to other people. We sow into others. That's awesome. But the mindset of give everything away can be a cop-out in a sense, because what we're saying is instead of me being a good steward, I'll just give it to somebody else and I'll let them do the hard work. But God's saying, no, I want you to do the work. Again, I've talked about giving in other episodes, but if you've given yourself to God and you give all you have and all you are and everything about you to God, then if it's in your possession, it's still His. So again, being a good steward does not mean you didn't give it to God. It means, no, it's His. I'm just the one managing it. So it takes more work, takes more thought, the whole deal. Number 5, I have to go quick through some of these. Number 5 was getting a good job. Again, this all ties in with my extremist desires of wanting to go to dangerous places and do missions and all this kind of stuff. But I wanted to do ministry and missions so much that I was like, God will take care of my finances. I just need to get there and I'll live miracle to miracle. And to go more in depth on this, I really encourage you to check out Andrew's teaching on blessings and miracles. You can find it on the website, or you can call the phone number 719-635-1111. His teaching on blessings and miracles is fantastic on this. But I used to think, well, if I try and get a good job, isn't that a lack of faith? Like, if I truly love God and I have faith, shouldn't I just wait for miracles to happen in my life? And God said, you're missing the point, right? Again, it was a form of laziness that looked like spirituality, is I'm just going to wait for God to just take care of my needs, and I'll always be in a crisis. I'll always need a miracle. God said, no, you're missing the point. See, I thought, if I pursue a good job, what if that becomes my source and I'm afraid to give it up? So I'm just always going to get entry-level, bare-bones jobs that don't require any skills. But God corrected me, right? Why would a bad job be better than a good job? Why would that be more spiritual? And so God's like, no, just put in the effort, put in the work, learn the skill sets to get the better jobs, things like that. So that ties into number 6, which I'll get to now, which is I thought I was being spiritual by not wanting to learn practical skill sets that could help me in a career. And so I found this one actually, even in the world of ministry, was I found that you need practical skill sets to be successful, to be effective in ministry, even if you're a pastor, whatever else. What people see is like public speaking. But that's a fraction, that's a tiny little fraction of what ministry really is. Most of it is getting work done behind the scenes and managing funds and organizing and spreadsheets and stuff like that. And so there's so many things that go into it. If you don't know how to do any of that stuff, then you're missing out on what the real work actually is. And so I had to learn the hard way. I thought, oh no, if it's God, he'll just put me in the positions that he wants me. Well, no, if it's God, he'll stir up in me enough drive to learn the skills that I need to learn. You know, my life really turned around when I always had the desire to serve God, but I got to start serving him in bigger and bigger ways when I started learning skill sets that equipped me to be more effective and to be more helpful. Right? If you have a great heart, but you don't know how to do anything, why would anybody hire you? You know, you need to learn how to do things to help people. The whole point of work is you're helping somebody else do something. And so the more skills you have, the more things you know how to do, the more wisdom, the more knowledge, the more training, things like that, understanding. The more of that you have, the more effective you can be, and so you can do a lot more, right? If you have to get a job, why not get a really good one? I'm not saying have to. If you don't work, you don't eat. I mean, work is supposed to be a good thing. And I think sometimes in Christian circles, we think, well, work is a necessary evil, and I'll work as much as I have to so I can do other more important things. But work in and of itself is a good thing. We're called to work. We're created to be productive. And so, you know, I used to think if God wants me to be good at something, he'll just make me good at it automatically. No, God wants to give us the desire to put the work in, to learn the things, right? To either go to the school or learn the trade or train in whatever, read books, something like that. And so, again, the bottom line with all of this is that, you know, salvation is a free gift. It's really easy. It's very effortless. And sometimes we get the mistaken idea that everything is supposed to be like that. Salvation is, God's promises are, but our calling and our purpose are supposed to be overflow, where it's this passion burning inside of us where we get to overflow, and it's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a blessing, right? If you think about it, here, an example I like to use, imagine that you're stuck under a car and Superman flies up and takes the car off of you. You're like, man, that's amazing, right? You're an ex-victim. I was stuck, now I'm free. That's awesome, you're very thankful. But then if Superman says, and now I'm going to give you all my superpowers also, I still have them, now you have the same superpowers I do, right? You'd be like, wait a minute, what? Now I'm not just an ex-victim, now I can do these amazing things. And so now it's not just, I'm not under a car, now it's, wait, I can do what you can do. I can fly, I can save the day, I can go fight crime, I can do whatever else. You would want to. If you had that kind of power, you'd want to do the kinds of things that he does. I'll wrap up there, we're out of time. But really the bottom line is don't put God in a box. Just because you don't know how to do something today doesn't mean that you won't know how to do it tomorrow. The question is, I'm going to lean on God to teach me these things, to show me how to learn them, how to grow in them, how to be amazing at them, and not accidentally be lazy thinking that we're being spiritual. We could talk about this a lot longer, but I hope this is at least helpful enough to spark some thoughts in you. Again, that's all I have for you today. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, today is going to be a good day.